What's going on? Most people get to their 40s and feels like their best days are behind them. And on some level, there is some truth to that. You know, as we age, things decline. Hormones, joint health, everything sort of takes its toll if all the time catches up to us all. But I'm 41 and I can legitimately say I feel better than I did in my mid 20s for sure. And it wasn't just because I was carrying more fat then, it was just the routine has come a long way. And I'm here to share my best tips to feel so good in your 40s, it literally feels illegal. So, one is a bit unconventional. I didn't join a cult. I just like to delay breakfast. I'm not the intermittent fasting type. I don't believe that you should be fasting till 1, 2 o'clock. You're losing opportunities to preserve, gain muscle if you're doing that, in my personal opinion. So, generally speaking, I just don't like to have a big, heavy Denny's style breakfast first thing in the morning. I like to use coffee and that natural cortisol spike we have in the morning to do my best mental work, and then maybe get a little exercise after that, and then have a protein rich breakfast. And I'm usually just like a smoothie type. I find I respond nicely to that. It takes the edge off my appetite, but it doesn't bog me down with a heavy carb load. We use carbs later. And that's called metabolic flexibility. I don't know if you've heard this term, but think of it like a hybrid car, which it switches between gas and electric without stalling, depending on what speed it needs. That's metabolic flexibility in your body. It can run on carbs or fat and switch gears interchangeably. People that are really lost in terms of insulin sensitivity are so reliant on carbs that they need to keep fueling the body with carbs, and then eventually it just stops responding to carbs as it should. So we want people to be in this opposite mindset where they can eat carbs and not feel groggy from it. You're using them right, okay? So this helps with that. Obviously, strength training and not overeating does too. But if you eat breakfast and feel great, you like having eggs, toast, whatever, that's your preference. It's not a law. I've just found this works great for me with my lifestyle. I want to hammer out a bunch of work first thing in the morning. Number 2, the 80-20 rule with at least 1 gram per pound of protein. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, it's as simple as it sounds. Like 80% of the foods you eat are, nutritious foods. You can spice them up, season them, make them taste okay. It's just not your typical hyper palatable junk food. But that other 20%, that's what makes life worth living to some degree. You can have the pizza night, a few slices. You can have a beer in moderation. I'll get to that one in a bit. And the occasional weekend that doesn't involve a food scale, and you're at a wedding and you're going to hammer pretty hard a couple nights and you get back to the game. Okay. Most diets fail because they're 100% on or 0% completely off, all or nothing. And nothing fits into that box. You need certainly a cleaner diet, but not a perfect diet. Okay. And then when I talked about protein, for most people, we as clients, we usually start them off at, okay, what's your goal weight? 30 pounds away. Okay, let's set your grams at that goal. So if you want to hit 150 pounds, 150 grams of protein per day. Simple math. It works out pretty nicely with what the science suggests is like the minimum effective dose to optimal. Okay. Next up is my supplementation, and I'm a minimalist when it comes to this stuff. I like creatine for obvious reasons. I don't know if we need to get too in-depth on that, but boron is the one that's less commonplace, and I'll share why I take that. But first things first, creatine, 5 grams a day every day. You can push up to 10 grams if you're sleep deprived. Make sure you drink enough to compensate for dehydration. Or you're looking for the brain benefits, which are still a bit murky, but there is some emerging research that it can really help. Like with the onset of Alzheimer's, potentially that's what they're looking at. But in your case, just functioning better cognitively, right? And muscle strength recovery, a pile of evidence that it makes a real difference there. Boron is my side dish. I take a small dose daily, like 6 milligrams. I just notice my joints benefit from it. It helps with calcium absorption in the bone and some inflammation. Steadier move, a bump in drive, and that's the free testosterone. It does have some benefit there. Not a huge amount. It's not going to replace testosterone replacement injections or anything. But I would suggest if you're low to normal on T, but your doctor says, yeah, you shouldn't go down the actual treatment route, this might be a way to kind of bridge that gap a bit. As you get older, hormones tend to work against you a bit. Okay. Next up is strength train. Like your future depends on it because it really does. Like being weak is not a longevity strategy, even though there is some bigger names in the space that are like, oh, be a vegan, eat in a calorie deficit, aggressive calorie deficit, starve yourself, because The people that eat the least live the longest. But there's a huge difference between like living longer and living better, right? And what's shown in the research is grip strength, leg strength, the ability to get off the floor without, standing without being able to do that. Like that's why you lift weights. So the compound effect pays off when you're in the nursing home and you don't need someone to wipe your own butt. Okay. Plus, full range strength training works better than yoga for mobility. Like stretching a muscle under load, far more effective than a static stretch. Not to say you can't throw in some static stretching on your off days, like mobility is key. But half the time we feel like we're stiff just by age, but oftentimes we're scared to go to that level of stretching because we haven't in so long. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's a big theme of today's call. Next up, play a sport, something that gets your heart rate up beyond what lifting weights can, although that might do it in moderation, or walking can, or biking around the neighborhood can. So I think you need to lift weights. That's the foundation, right? But strength is half the picture. The other half is your engine, your VO2 max, basically how good your body is at using oxygen so you can recover faster. You're not out of breath walking up a flight of stairs. That's a big predictor of how long we live. The higher your VO2 max, I'd say 40, it does gradually go down with age, or rapidly goes down with age if you do nothing to stop it. That's really going to indicate your capacity for getting off the toilet when you're in your 80s. Okay. So I like to do it by playing a sport. I hate just sprinting for the sake of sprinting, but I still play hockey. Pickleball might do it to some degree, but generally it's like a higher intensity sport, soccer, where you do have to sprint full out, recover, rinse and repeat. And if sports aren't your thing, most of the time zone 1 and 2 cardio is the best way to do it. Walking, brisk walking, maybe biking where you're a bit out of breath, but once a week, like generally hard, short bursts. So that could be on a stationary bike, full out 20, 30-second sprint, recovery period, minute or two, do it again. All right, simple one is hit your steps and drink your water. 8 to 10,000 steps a day. It's just about movement. It helps with blood sugar regulation, like after meals. If you move, you just digest your food better. Just try to be inconvenient with this, like park further away, go the long route, take the stairs. That all adds up fast. Even if you don't have, I don't have the time for an hour walk. It's all the little choices you make during the day that make your steps matter. And then the water piece is just 3 liters a day, super unsexy, widely underrated. Like you know the difference between hunger and thirst. If you're hydrated, that's big. Your brain works better, your body works better, you don't get cramps, you don't get injured. Okay. You're a houseplant. You forgot to water yourself. Get to that. It's super simple, but you can't change your situation without hydration. Next up, I think we're on number 7, hopefully. Sleep like it's your job. You can't out-train, out-inject, out-supplement bad sleep. It really touches everything. Your hunger, your willpower, your recovery, your hormones, your mood, your patience with your kids. All of that is wrecked by bad sleep. Okay. So you truly need to aim for 7 to 8 hours, and it's hard to do in this stage of life. I get that, but same bedtime, even on weekends, within an hour for sure. Cut caffeine if you're like hyper responsive to it, like at noon or sooner. Some people can get away with it a bit later, but some people say they can get away with it, and it's not actually a fact. They don't sleep as good. Cool, dark room, bright lights in your eyes. Some supplements might help, but I would try to get the basics in place. I track mine with an Aura just to see what happens when I do things deviate from my plan, and I notice right away that REM is not as good if I go to bed after midnight, etc. All right. And then a quick footnote, 2 that are kind of gaining popularity lately that I'm not completely sold on, but morning sunlight, you're going to sleep better that way if you get outside in the first hour of the day and get some movement in, get some light in your eyes. It sets your sleep clock, circadian rhythm. And then ease off the booze, unfortunately. I'm not telling you to never have a beer, but for most guys, alcohol really steals your energy, steals your sleep quality. You might pass out, but you don't get quality sleep that you would otherwise. Even a couple drinks can add up in calories and you feel like crap. And then you skip the workout the next day and it has that cascade effect. So know what you can handle. Try to cut it off at least 3 hours before bedtime. And for most guys, it doesn't take much at 40. The hangovers hit whole differently. That's one thing about aging. You can't escape. Recovery, capacity to rebound from things is a lot harder. Okay, number 9, know your numbers. So before you go chasing any of this, like get your base blood work done. People feel off because of their age when really maybe their vitamin D is in the basement. Maybe there's something wrong in their blood work. And maybe it is the hormonal side of things where their testosterone shot. Lifestyle would generally fix it. But I like to do at least once a year. Ideally, I'm getting it done every 6 months, full blood panel. And we have a clinic we've partnered with our clients. We're free first diagnostic. They run your bloods. Now we have a baseline. All right, and 10, because everyone asks about this, peptides and the fancier stuff. My honest answer, I'm definitely wouldn't consider it down the road for me. I'm not there yet, though. For example, like growth hormone or peptides that naturally increase growth hormone might have their place for thymus regeneration, sleep, recovery, joint health, but it introduces an X factor of side effects, and then you're having to manage your bloods and make sure that it's not causing the wrong kind of damage. And the same with testosterone. It's a life sentence. If you try to come off, you may not recover your natural production. And if you feel worse on it, you're in kind of between a rock and a hard place. So master the 90%, the free natural stuff first. The other 10% can probably wait. There's lots of YouTube content on that stuff. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. I am a believer in science and GLP-1s for obese individuals that have tried it all naturally. Great. A lot of these other peptides are unproven, but testosterone and growth hormone have been around a long time, and those may have their place in anti-aging routine regimen, but under doctor supervision, and don't haphazardly go into it. Okay. So the good news is none of this is extreme. There's no cold plunges unless that's your thing. There's no major cleanse. No eating one meal a day and calling that the plan. That's rough and hard to sustain. Just a handful of boring habits, consistently done. And pick a few this week and start, right? That's the idea. If you're not doing all 10, that's probably normal. But start with 2, start with 3. Momentum beats perfection. And if you want me to build this plan out for you, not some 22-year-old influencer, the link in the chat would get you started with that. So let's get you feeling good. Almost like it feels illegal without any illegal substances. A win-win.